Caleb Williams on Maxx Crosby's podcast. It was about an hour, 8 minutes, I think.
It was fun.
It was super interesting. I got to say, like, sometimes these player-to-player podcasts are not super interesting, but this one was pretty good. I enjoyed listening to it. It was good stuff.
Yeah, like Maxx Crosby is such like a super chill guy. And I know Caleb is too, but it was like funny at the beginning. They were like trying to out chill each other. Like, it was like they're like, who can be more chill in this interview? But like you can just tell how much they get along. And it's really, I got a ton of thoughts on this.
Yeah,
I mean, I could just kind of spew them out, but it was a really good interview.
Well, I mean, I think we got to start with this, and that is the my biggest takeaway is that Maxx Crosby definitely would not hate being a Chicago Bear. I think that much is very clear. I think in some ways this interview was calculated. But even if we're overblowing that a little bit, I think that the respect that these two clearly have for each other is super interesting. And you could also hear in this interview, as much as Caleb Williams was talking about Ben Johnson, they would all be a good fit together. Like, they're all kind of vibe the same way. So this is taking the temp where we're going to take the temp on how much Maxx Crosby wants to be a Bear. And this is brought to you by Four Seasons, your trusted local experts for heating, air conditioning, plumbing, sewer, and electric. They've been serving Chicagoland for over 50 years. Visit fourseasonsheatingcooling.com for all their special offers and money-saving coupons. That's fourseasonsheatingcooling.com. So, Braggs, I have no idea if the Bears and Raiders can come to an agreement on what Maxx Crosby's worth, what the compensation would be, what the health of his knee is, all of those variables that will ultimately determine whether or not Maxx Crosby is even moved, let alone the Chicago Bears. But beyond all that, how much do you think Maxx Crosby wants to be a Bear?
I think very much so. And I was talking to Gary Ross yesterday on my way to Purdue as Michigan shellacked the Boilermakers, and he said something that is very true, that I agree with. I don't think Maxx Crosby, as loyal as he is to the Raiders fan base and Raiders Nation, I don't know if we're ever going to have a situation where he comes out this offseason and demands a trade. But, like, this is your way of showing, hey, come get me, Chicago, right? He knows that Maxx Crosby and the Bears have been connected over the last year. And so who do you bring on? You bring on Caleb Williams, and you guys are just throwing rose petals at each other. If I'm a Raiders fan, I know I'm hearing the noise about all these teams that want Maxx Crosby. I'm hearing how the Bears constantly are knocking on the door to get him. And now my best player brings on Caleb Williams, and they're trading, love letters to each other. If I'm a Raiders fan, as much as I'd probably first and foremost be in denial, I would be pissed. I'd be like, why are you doing this to us? You're only stoking the flames. So, but if I'm Ryan Poles, I'm paying attention to this. Like, I know a lot of Bears fans will point to how it may not make sense over the next 5 years to trade for Maxx Crosby and take on a contract. I'm just telling you, you can make a fair argument of why it doesn't make sense. I don't care. Give me Maxx Crosby. If the Bears actually want to do this, I would sign off on a move like this because it is clear that Maxx Crosby would fit well in this locker room. Look at how much he respects Caleb Williams. To have your defensive leader respect your quarterback like that, I mean, how many times in Chicago have the defense and offense been on two separate wavelengths?
Yeah.
Now you've got your best player on defense wanting to run through a brick wall for your quarterback and your offensive head coach because they've all kind of on the same wavelength. I think it absolutely is something Ryan Poles needs to consider. And it honestly kind of reminds me, it's not an exact comparison, but it kind of reminds me of when Jay Cutler and Brandon Marshall in the very early days of Twitter were like trading tweets at each other about wink, wink, nod, nod, love to play with you again. And I know they already had played together in Denver, so that's the difference. But like that kind of started this snowball to where all of a sudden the Bears did trade for Brandon Marshall. And no one really at the time when they were tweeting at each other thought it was 100% realistic. And then it formulated fairly quickly. It's like, hey, he wants to come here. Caleb and him get along. It makes sense for the Bears. And if you're Ryan Poles and you're somebody that said after the season's over, yeah, I probably can't do the moves that everyone wants me to make anymore. I've gotten in trouble in that before. Well, this isn't everyone. This is Caleb Williams wanting you to make this move.
Yeah. Well, and I also think, the compensation conversation is super interesting. I don't really know where it lands, but for Bill Barnwell the other day to put out a hypothetical trade that was, and we have it here for you, the Raiders receiving DJ Moore and a 2026 first-round pick. So this April's number 25th overall pick going to the Raiders. And the Bears getting Maxx Crosby and a future fifth-round pick in 2027 back in return. Look, I've kind of firmly planted my flag in I think TJ Moore's getting a little bit too much flack, and he still helps you offensively, and I wouldn't force a trade just to get rid of him. But if that's the trade to get Maxx Crosby, like Steven said yesterday when we discussed this,
I would do it in a heartbeat, but I see no scenario the Raiders would.
I know. That's
like, how is a fifth-round pick coming back our way?
Yeah, thank you.
It doesn't even feel fair just for DJ, the first-round pick, for just Max. But then they're also bringing a fifth back to us. Like, yeah, I don't see that as a realistic.
But I say this every year. The market's the market, and the reality is, I don't know if they know what the market is, but he's coming off a knee injury, and that does matter. And I don't think the Raiders are going to be able, nor do I think they should get what the Cowboys got for Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons was, as much as I love Maxx Crosby as a player, Micah Parsons was more decorated. I mean, we're talking about defensive player of the year multiple times. So, and they got 2 firsts and a player in return. So while I do think it would take more than DJ Moore and a first, what if it was a third too?
Well, I think the other aspect of this too, and I agree with La Raza in the chat where he said they're going to want 2 firsts. Well, I could see that potential depending on what the market is, because not all first-round picks are created equal. And the Bears picked 25 this year. Caleb's talking about it with Maxx Crosby that they want to set the record for most touchdowns in a season next year. So, well, if that's the case, then they're winning a Super Bowl, and that's pick number 32.
You know what? Well, and remember pick 32? Remember they once gave that pick up for Chase Claypool?
Yes, I do remember that.
So, but the reason why that popped in my head the other day was because of what I think that's the point you're making, is like they traded a second-round pick, but because of, was it the Dolphins who got docked a pick that year?
Right.
It ended up being the 32nd pick.
Right.
And that's only 7 picks off of where the Bears draft now in the first round.
Right.
So in terms of pick value.
So that's my point. It's like, what is going to be the market for this? If Maxx Crosby does come out and say, I want to be traded, because the one thing Albert Breer, it was a great interview. If you had a chance to go watch it, we got 20 plus minutes with him, and he had some really good insight about the stadium, about Trey Hendrickson, about Maxx Crosby. And the one thing he said was that I found revealing was that the fences that actually needed to be mended in Vegas are between him and Brady. Like, he kind of alluded to that. So that's interesting to me, right? Because Max, like, he's talked about like having minority ownership one day with the Raiders. Like, he lives and breathes Raider Nation. But I also have to imagine, just as a competitor, you want to win at some point. And they're going to draft Mendoza with the first pick. Like, how far away they are from realistically competing for a Super Bowl is hard to say. From an organizational standpoint, it probably is in their best interest to move players around and start putting all their assets into their offense. You got Ashton
to help Mendoza.
Right,
yeah.
you got Ashton Jensen, you got Brock Bowers, but you need an offensive line, And so, like, you can figure out the defense later, but they got to get Mendoza in the best situation. We all learned this from year one with Caleb, how important it is for developmental growth to have a conducive environment for a rookie quarterback, or else you're risking quite a bit. The Bears got lucky that Ben Johnson came here in year 2. So what is the market? Because I saw Rank on NFL Network with Tom Pelissero bringing up, would the Commanders trade the 7th overall pick, for Maxx Crosby? Like if teams like that start coming into the fray, that's going to change the Bill Barnwell, proposal. If the Bears are bidding by themselves, maybe that's a realistic trade, but it's not realistic that they're going to be bidding by themselves. So in that case, now when you talk about leverage with the stadium, the leverage goes to the Raiders where they can start saying, no, 25 isn't enough juice. You got to give a lot more than that.
Right. And you could say, why would the Raiders want to take on DJ Moore's contract? Well, they're kind of trading contracts, right? And so if they're deciding, all right, this isn't going to work with Maxx Crosby, there's actually not a whole lot of money that they need to eat in the way that contract was put together in trading him. There's not a lot of dead money that they would have to eat. So the Bears would actually be eating quite a bit of dead money on the DJ Moore contract, while the Raiders would be inheriting, yes, a player who's probably getting paid more than he's producing right now, but it would be very easy to get out of in the future. So it would actually be giving them more cap flexibility while also giving them a good wide receiver who has worked with plenty of young quarterbacks now at this point, going through both the Caleb Williams and Justin Fields experience. Now, I would also kind of feel bad for DJ Moore to finally be in this winning situation and then be sent to the Raiders, but that's a different conversation.
Well, now Jay LaVisha brings this up, and I brought this up a few weeks ago. Like, if you're the Raiders, like everybody, I've seen a few people say, oh, well, like, DJ's, like, or not DJ. Like, I saw somebody bring up earlier in the chat that the Micah deal is different because, Crosby's older and he's coming off an injury. Well, that doesn't matter. Like, you can rationalize why it should be a lesser deal if you're Chicago because we're Bears fans. But if you're the Raiders, you want the best deal you could possibly get. And LaVisha brings up something like, I do see a scenario where the Raiders could counter and say, like, yeah, we'll take Roma Dunze and your first round
Roma Dunze.
Las Vegas native Roma Dunze and a first round pick. Like, now all of a sudden we're getting a little closer. Like, I don't think the Bears would do that.
Right, but
I could see the Raiders asking for that.
You could ask for whatever you want. Like, so Schefter's reporting they want 2 firsts. Great. That doesn't mean you're getting it. The market's the market. The market is whatever the best deal is you're actually getting.
Rome cancels out, to me, 2 firsts. Like, that's almost, like, to me, that's a, like,
so you want just Rome straight up?
No. Rome and the 25th pick. Like, if you're the Raiders, like, that's how valuable, if I'm a Raiders fan, that's how valuable Maxx Crosby is to me. But as a Bears fan, you probably aren't going to want to get rid of or trade Roma Dunze.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see that.
I get their asking price because if you're going off the Micah Parsons deal, yeah, he's 2 years younger than Maxx Crosby is, but that was 2 firsts and Kenny Clark. So they're saying, all right, take the defensive tackle out of this. We just want 2 firsts because he's a little bit older and he's coming off of a knee injury. So the price actually makes sense to me, but when you start bringing in Roma Dunze to the mix here, well, it was a top 10 pick, so now you're going to give up a top 10 pick effectively plus pick number 25. That's a little too rich for me.
I agree.
Well, regardless, one of my other takeaways from this interview was just how great of a fit he would be.
100%.
With Caleb and with Ben Johnson. And I was listening to this in the car ride down, and I don't know that I've ever thought of a quarterback this way, but I think it actually makes sense. So a lot of times when we talk about, and I did it even today in our Hogan Johns mock draft that we put out, I love defensive linemen with high motors. It's one of the reasons why Maxx Crosby back in the day appeared in a Hogue Bears mock draft, because you watched him on film and he just plays relentlessly every single snap. His motor is insane. That's how Caleb plays quarterback. And I know it's weird to talk about a quarterback with a high motor, but if you watch how he plays in these games, he never gets tired.
Right.
He's scrambling. He's running around here. He runs 40 yards, throws the ball, runs 40 yards. He talked about it in this interview. And they were talking about it the same way. Like they're conditioned well. They play a certain way. He is a quarterback with a high motor, and I don't know if I've ever thought about a quarterback like that. And meanwhile, I think that's the same way you described the head coach. Mm-hmm. I think Ben Johnson is a high motor head coach. Like, he is just relentless in the pursuit of winning. Even on the sidelines, he looks stoic, but he's not wasting his breath. He's not wasting his time complaining about calls, yelling at players.
Celebrating.
It is next play mentality. It's hard to get him to celebrate because he is a psychopath, just like Maxx Crosby is out there, just like Caleb Williams is out there. And I just think the trio of them, offense, defense to the coaching staff, would be perfect for the Chicago Bears.
Completely agree. And I think the other takeaway I had from this interview is you get so much more out of Caleb when he's comfortable. Everybody talked about the first year, how many when he's at the podium, how many times he says right?
Yeah.
Like, but in this interview, he's not like he's just going. Like, you're not hearing he's just, talking relaxed. He's being honest about, like, I loved his breakdown of, his mindset of that final play. And I loved how he talked about how they watched it back later and he saw Ben Johnson throw his head up like, what is this guy doing? And Caleb being able to identify that the defender was at the goal line and he was throwing to the back. He knew he had enough room to the back pylon. And hearing Caleb talk about how he was able to process all that while he's got 4 guys chasing him down, that was cool to hear. I enjoyed listening to him talk about his eating, his diet, throughout the season and how locked in he is to that, and talking about how he prides himself on having that endless motor. Like, even when he looks tired between plays, once the ball is snapped, like, he's not tired, and he prides himself on that. And then I think the biggest takeaway was the things when Max asked him what he felt like he needs to be better at next year. And, like, you might not get that level of honesty at the podium, but with Max and they're trading, player-to-player conversation and him talking about, like, yeah, I need to find more completions, and listed off the different reasons, throwaways or ball placement or otherwise, on how he can get better at that. But then also where he's talking about, hey, I need to be more in control pre-snap because Drew Dahlman was
he talked about the protections.
And I thought that was really interesting and really revealing. And so these are things we somewhat knew throughout the year.
Well,
but
how about the third one, though? He wants to have the greatest offense ever.
Yeah.
He's shooting at 39 points per game, which would be better than the Peyton Manning Broncos.
Yeah, like, I'm all for it. Like, that's great.
But I love that. Set the bar, man.
Yeah, I agree.
You think Ben Johnson wants that?
I'm more of like Cole. Like, I can already hear Cole because, like, the last couple of years, right? Like, when they got Ben, he's like, "You excited? Like, we got Ben Johnson." It's like, yeah, we got to get to work now. Like, no, dude, it's gonna work. Like, you got Ben Johnson, and then this year they get to the divisional round. Like, hey, man, that was awesome, man. It's gonna be a great year next. No, it all starts over. It's like, God damn it, Cole. Like,
just let me be happy,
right? Like, so, like, I'm more like Cole has me trained where it's like, all right, yeah, sure, 40 points a game. We got to earn it, like, but I love that he thinks like that. And Ben walked in, like, when you talk about mirroring personalities, Ben was talking about dominating teams when he first came in. So, yeah, I'm all for it, but they got to get it done, as Cole would say.
Yeah. Well, all right. Let's get the trade for Maxx Crosby done. How about we do that?
Like I said, I can totally understand the arguments of why it wouldn't make sense. I officially do not care. And I know if you go back and look at our Micah Parsons breaking news pod we did, we were kind of toying with them about how it may not work out for them. And so I may look like a hypocrite.
Where I'm actually drawing a line, though. I am drawing a line at multiple first-round picks. I do not think it makes sense to give up multiple first-round picks. But I do think there's a world where they don't have to. I think one and a player and maybe a third or something like that, I'm down with that.
Yeah.
Is there any other player that would match salaries like DJ would? Like, first one that came to mind for me was Montez Sweat, but I don't see the Raiders being interested there.
But also, you don't have to match the salaries. The Bears can play around with the cap where they can, it helps. But see, they're going to be taking on dead money by trading DJ Moore anyway. It's more that it's filling a need for the Raiders at the same time, where they could say, hey, we're adding a reliable wide receiver that's going to help Fernando Mendoza, because they don't have many of those right now.
Yeah, right now their number 1 receiver is Trey Tucker, and that, quite frankly, isn't good enough. He'd be a really good number 3 on a lot of teams, but I don't even think he's a good number 2. He was just put in that role because of the Jacoby Myers trade last year.
I'm just not going to blame the Bears if they make this move and it eventually 3 years from now doesn't work out. Like, I want them to go for it. Go for a Super Bowl. And we talked about it yesterday with the offensive line that you have right now. They're not going to be here forever. And, yeah, I have faith that this coaching staff will be able to roll over a new offensive line 3 years from now that'll look different but be just as dominant. But right now you have a dominant offensive line. You have a rising star in Caleb Williams. You have this offense that's already potent with so many things they can get better at. Let's see what they do on the defensive side of the ball. But to me, you've got this early window, which I think can be a bigger window going forward because of this coaching staff and this quarterback. But I want them going for the Super Bowl for the next 2 years. And if you trade for Maxx Crosby and it doesn't work out, I'm not going to blame you, because I'm going to appreciate that you went for it. And that's basically where I come down to it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. The other part of this, too, is that the contract's already done. You don't have to work out the contract extension. Now, you might down the road, but it's not like, when they traded for Khalil Mack, that was because his contract was up, and they had to give him that big extension. You know exactly,
And by the way, when they traded for Khalil Mack, it would have worked had the quarterback.
They had the quarterback, 100%.
If Patrick Mahomes was the quarterback when they traded for Khalil Mack, we might be talking about the Bears winning a Super Bowl in 2018.